Oh my God.
Wow, we look so tired.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, happy Friday. It's been a
Happy
minute.
Friday.
It's been a minute. Welcome to Cocktails and Conversation. I'm Heather Holdridge,
I'm Larry Quinn.
and this is almost like an emergency edition in a way. We've all been traveling the past several weeks, and travel continues for both of us because,
Indeed.
like many great Americans, we're going elsewhere for the holiday. But holy crap, it's been a week, and I texted Larry. I texted you Wednesday, and I was like, and this was before all the Supreme Court decisions. I was like, should maybe talk about
Yeah, we totally should. I was like, yeah, we should.
And I do need a cocktail. So,
yeah. So what are you making? I am in a hotel lounge conference room, so I do not have quite the same ability.
You don't have proper.
No, Heather's gonna make us something. I am just sort of, again, my trusty old travel bourbon, and then I found some Coke. I'm just gonna have a bourbon.
That's like your new.
That's all. Look, I don't have many options.
But I appreciate that you are bringing the quality travel bourbon. I am making a drink called a Fitzwell. And I had never heard of this drink until like 2 months ago. It is essentially, it's like classic martini, perfect martini, which is say 1-to-1 ratio. And it has an extra liqueur added to it that I had also never heard of called Strega, which is beautiful and brilliant. Yeah, I'm going to show you the bottle because this is a beautiful, right? It's gorgeous. It's herbaceous. It's bitter, sort of herby, very almost like doesn't really taste like chartreuse, but it reminds me a little bit of chartreuse. So here we go.
So it's a perfect martini with a twist.
Yeah, with a twist. So it gives it a little something.
Nice.
So we're going to 1, 2, 3, 4.
But Strega is not as hard to get as chartreuse, so I can actually.
No, exactly.
As you know, Heather makes her drink. I'm just gonna start drinking. I'm that tired, everyone. I'm sure everyone is a little bit tired. It's just a lot going on.
Everyone is a lot tired. So, and my dog is insisting on participating in this conversation. So while I'm mixing this up, I wanted to start off today talking about SCOTUS, which, you know, not a legal expert, but a couple things really just struck me over some of the major cases that have come down in the last few days. The first, of course, was this morning's birthright citizenship case, which is a little bit of a misnomer because it wasn't really what they.
Not really.
No, in fact, they kicked the can on the merits of whether, you know, they're agreeing with Trump on, you know, does birthright citizenship exist, even though it's in the plain text of the Constitution?
Sure.
But whatever.
I am a birthright citizen. I was born in a refugee camp in Arkansas.
There you go. Well, my wife was born in a hospital, the most southernmost hospital in California, next to the border with Mexico, with parents who at the time were not American citizens. So, you know, this is
anchor baby.
But okay, so the Supreme Court, they actually rule. It was really a ruling about use of nationwide injunctions. This has been controversial for years, and where a single judge, and you know, people were using this to forum shop to find a sympathetic judge.
Well,
they go
the right wing in particular during the Biden years.
Absolutely,
very aggressively, and they kept coming. Where I am in Texas right now, they kept looking for a judge in Texas. Pretty much was the MO.
Exactly. So that was what was happening during the Biden years. And we've seen a ton of nationwide injunctions in the Trump administration. He's been losing 82% of the time. And a lot of that, in a lot of cases, these federal district courts have been issuing nationwide injunctions. Well, the Supreme Court ruled and said, you can't do that anymore. These nationwide injunctions, this was not what Congress intended when they did this. Okay. But it's worse than that.
Right. Unfortunately.
And it's worse than that because it's not just if I sue and I live in, in a small town in upstate New York, which is where I'm from, and that court rules in my favor, everyone else who lives in that jurisdiction gets relief. No, that's not what happens. I'm the only one who gets relief as the plaintiff whose name was on the lawsuit. Therefore, the only way for people to get relief is to create class action lawsuits and to sue. Otherwise, it's only the person who went to court, which is bananas, straight up bananas and bonkers.
Is that really how it turns out? Look,
Yes.
I am no legal expert, so it's just sort of like that just seems so out of bounds to me.
It's crazy. And the Supreme Court limited class action lawsuits a couple of years ago.
We should look. I haven't looked. I wonder if the dissent brings that up, being like, because I always wonder if like they know exactly. Sometimes like the Supreme Court, I'm like, they kind of sort of work backwards from where they want to go and then write something and don't always understand the consequences of what they're trying to work, of what they actually write because they worked backwards to a solution.
Well, that's interesting.
So I mean, I just wonder if that was. It seems to me that's the intent. A lot of times they don't want relief for large groups of people, and so.
Well, I'll tell you why I think that's true. Because the other case, people notice I'm decked out in Planned Parenthood swag left and right, is that yesterday there was a different case where a patient of Planned Parenthood sued the federal government. She was a Medicaid patient, and they have this thing called provider of choice, that patients get to use provider of choice. And in South Carolina, they have barred Planned Parenthood from the Medicaid program, basically illegally, because Planned Parenthood is an approved provider because they provide the services that Medicaid provides, and therefore they are qualified. Well, by South Carolina trying to cut Planned Parenthood out of the program simply because they perform abortions, even though that funding is not used for abortion, this patient sued. And the Supreme Court said, no, you individual patient, you cannot sue. And so you don't have standing here under the Medicaid law. So obviously this is a travesty and it's devastating for Planned Parenthood. And as a proud alum of Planned Parenthood, it's devastating to me. But also, if you connect what happened to this woman, this patient in that Planned Parenthood case, and what we were just talking about in the birthright citizenship, the through line here is that the courts are shutting down access to the courts by individuals, whether it's to go sue corporations or the government. Those court doors are closed.
Which has always been a big thing for them, right? They tried to do it through tort reform and all those other mechanisms, and now they've just decided to do it by fiat via the Supreme Court, right? Because they have actually worked really hard to try to make the irony of the Supreme Court sort of making these huge changes so that other courts have less power to actually enact change. And so they've been doing that for a while. The Planned Parenthood stuff, rulings extremely devastating from a human level.
Yeah.
And huge parts of South Carolina, I think maybe even 1 in 4, I think I saw somewhere 1 in 4
yes.
Rely on Planned Parenthood for basic health services because the clinics provide healthcare services to people. So like a quarter of the population are now unable to use the health services that they've been using at Planned Parenthood via Medicaid because of this ruling. And it is really just devastating for people in a state, and I think in other states where their access to healthcare, access to hospitals, it does not affect someone like me. I live in a big city with access to lots of ways to get healthcare. And in a lot of these sort of poor areas, rural areas that voted heavily for Trump, they are losing access to a healthcare provider.
Yep.
That's what this is. That's what the real impact is. Everyone wants to talk about abortion, and it is really bad on that issue as well. And that's the whole point, to punish. and try to hurt Planned Parenthood, but the consequence and the impact becomes people and what they use Planned Parenthood for. The vast majority of people are using it for other things. Things like, preventing cancer, just basic health maintenance things that you're supposed to do for to make sure you don't get really sick.
Breast health screenings, birth control, wellness exams. Planned Parenthood actually runs the gamut of that, both for women and the growing population of patients when I was still there was young men, actually. And so
because half the time young men can't talk about some of this shit with other people. And they feel like they need a place to go.
Mm-hmm. Well, I defer to you as someone who never was a young man, but yeah, I think that's right. And
I mean, just that, young men, certainly young gay men, and just like going to, probably in areas where they probably aren't always out, and feel like they have to go to a place where they feel they can talk to someone safely, and those options are being closed off to people, and it's truly devastating in these areas that are, we always talk about it, and areas that voted heavily for Trump, and I'm not the type of person who's like, well, good for them, screw them, they screwed themselves over. I just don't think there's not enough information and enough information dissemination for folks, and I don't know if there's a full realization of the impact in the communities. And that's sad. And a lot of these folks are folks who don't have access, don't have the resources. And if you want to be sort of on your liberal high horse and go assume it's like a bunch of poor white people in rural areas that are Republicans, it's more than that. And it is hurting people in rural areas who actually did vote our way and support us, and regardless, it's screwing people over and going to cost people lives.
Is absolutely going to cost lives, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the big bad bill that the Senate is now considering. And I will add that there is a full Planned Parenthood defunding provision within the Senate bill, which I'm assuming they use the same language. I was still at Planned Parenthood in 2017, where they had a defunding provision as part of the ACA repeal, which of course, John McCain, right? So it didn't happen, but so that is also in the Senate bill. So we're talking about South Carolina, any state that has individually chosen to defund Planned Parenthood. Now, in theory, I'm assuming is going to move to fully get them out of the program. That is as a just healthcare provider. But if this tax cut bill goes through, and this is what people don't actually know about, because everyone's talking about the Medicaid cuts, which are horrific, or the SNAP cuts, which are horrific. But there's all of these other provisions in this bill that people are not focused on because of just all of the day-to-day that it's coming. We've spent the last week talking about whether, Iran's nuclear program was obliterated or not. And it's like, okay, but this is a semantics question, frankly. And in the meantime, they're still trying to pass this bill that is underwater by almost 18 points because people know that this bill is going to not benefit them. It is going to benefit rich people at the expense of them. We are actually paying for it.
Right. We're paying for it twice.
We're paying for it twice.
But the issue is, and Heather, I would talk about it because some of the work is trying to talk to, that I've been doing is trying to talk to folks about this bill. And folks are, whether it's, crazy like a fox or not, they are so distracted by Iran and the war with Israel and all that crazy shit that when you come to folks to actually, we've been talking to different creators and things like that and be like, would you consider posting or talking about the provisions? The appetite for it is actually incredibly low. And that's what's so scary. There's a disconnect in the sense that it's really unpopular, but no one really cares enough to talk about it. Doesn't it feel like no one's really talking about it except for insiders? right? That's what's weird. And so, we as technically insiders and decent folks, we hear all about it, and everyone thinks this big deal. But when you go out there, the conversation isn't there, and that is, I don't know who's blamed for it. I don't know if it's because of how information is disseminated in the world and how fractured it is. But whatever Democrats are doing, or opponents of the bill, of which we are all opponents of the bill, are trying to do to get it into the bloodstream, it is not working. People are like, well, it seems silly to talk about this when there are all these other things going on, except really huge consequences, not the least of which is this huge Planned Parenthood defunding component that really should freak people out and scare people.
And it's worth saying that, and that's the last thing I'll say about the Planned Parenthood piece of this. Planned Parenthood has always been popular, and defunding Planned Parenthood has always been unpopular. Over 60% of people do not want Planned Parenthood defunded. The last data that I saw, it might even be higher now, I'm not sure, but upwards of over 60%, maybe upwards pushing 65%. But the other piece is, you're talking about 1.1 million people. So, you're talking about 1.1 million people who are going to lose access to their provider of choice, and nobody is talking about it. And
right.
That is not just in the red states. That is everywhere.
Exactly. And by the way, it's like, oh, you should be able to pick. No, apparently not if they work at a certain place.
Correct. And so maybe this is a good time to transition to some of the, again, going to this tax cut bill that, I think many people have heard that it is largely tax cuts that are going to go to the wealthiest 10% in our country. And those who make less than that, you're going to get a little bit of a tax cut. That's true. But also a bunch of benefits are going to go away. And a bunch of programs are going to go away that you benefit from. So it's really going to be a net negative for most of us. But one of the things that people aren't talking about, again, what aren't people talking about in this bill? There's a lot of cuts to the Affordable Care Act in this bill. And I think I see this as like, this is a backdoor way to kill the Affordable Care Act without saying you're repealing it, because you're making it more expensive and harder for people to enroll. I saw some stat that 20 million Americans are going to see their premiums increase by an average of $700 a year. Small businesses are going to be paying more money. This is nuts. Something like 44% increased cost for small businesses who are just trying to provide healthcare for their employees. It's crazy.
It's crazy. And then on top of that, so you're cutting healthcare and access to healthcare. And because there's just like anything that actually is supposed to help the environment is bad, even though it was like there are all these clean energy jobs and these clean energy projects. Some of them had already started, right? Some of them are mid-process, and there's just getting rid of all of those projects and funding for those projects, even if they've already started. So you're talking about jobs, like a ton of jobs. I think it's somewhere close to 1,800,000-ish jobs that just stop, either planned or already in process. So let's not give people healthcare, and then now that their medical costs are going to go up, let's make sure that people don't have the means to pay for it because they can't get these jobs. And these are jobs that people want. I don't think people really understand, like, these are good, high-paying jobs around clean energy, but because they're clean energy, they just want to get rid of the projects, right? And so it is kind of crazy. I mean, even for example, North Carolina, there's tens of thousands of jobs. There's big centers. At some point, they got rid of 10, 20,000 jobs. Tillis, that's what's happening in this bill. So it's all in the service of people who have paid for the privilege to have their pockets lined. And I think that's what's happening. And that is so crazy to me that it's not getting more attention, not enough people. And part of it is just so much and it gets a little wonky. But the bottom line is, like, people are going to get sick, people are going to die, and people are not, and those who don't die don't have any more money to take care of themselves, because that's what this bill does, in the interest of serving a bunch of rich people and billionaires, make sure they just have a little bit more money that they absolutely do not need or deserve.
They absolutely do not need. The rural hospitals thing kills me too, right? So again, this is a part of the Medicaid cuts. Rural hospitals are partially supplemented and funded through Medicaid program. Okay. The Medicaid cuts here are going to decimate and devastate rural hospitals. I grew up in a small town. We have a community hospital in my hometown. I don't know if it's going to survive this. What I can tell you is the difference between, having a heart attack and going 10 minutes away versus 40 minutes away is literally life and death. Number one. Number two, this is what kills me. The Senate Republicans know this, and many of them represent predominantly rural states. So what do? They say, okay, we understand this is a problem, so we're going to create a rural hospitals fund, and we're going to put $15 billion in it. Here's the problem. The Rural Hospital Association estimates that it's going to blow a hole of $50 billion in their budgets.
Math is too complicated, Heather. No, stop.
So they're going to lose $50 billion because you're cutting Medicaid, and you're like, oh, well, we'll start a fund of
for 15
billion. It's like, well, you could do this other thing, which is
not do it,
not cut Medicaid and give money to billionaires. You could do that. It's just a suggestion, right? And
hey, guys, 15 minus 50 is minus 5.
It is going to be it's going to be a hard day when a bunch of these rural hospitals close, and let's be clear, first and foremost, you talk about lives lost, of course. And the people who will die because the hospital they then have access to is, an extra 25, 30, 40 minutes away from the hospital that doesn't exist anymore. But that's also jobs. It's jobs for the people working in the hospital. It's jobs for businesses that service those workers who work in the hospital. The second and third order effects of this are catastrophic, especially in rural communities that don't have other industries to absorb the job losses.
Right. And it's
crazy.
It is crazy, but again, this is transactional.
Yes.
And it's transactional at the highest or most expensive levels, and that's a call that Republicans are making. It's interesting because in the work that we do, so much of the realignment in voting that's been happening has been more working class voters moving away from the Democratic Party, and sort of that Trump has this incredible, unique appeal to that audience, and they are getting fucked constantly, just from this bill, but the stuff before as well. So this is just the latest salvo. I don't know what the impact is in the communities. I wonder. I question what the reaction is going to be, because I do worry that there is a crazy information vacuum that happens, and how people get information and how folks then assign blame is because of whatever bubbles of which they receive information determine. And the concern is if you're getting your information from right-wing outlets, then you will then redirect your blame for it not at where it should be.
Blame Joe Biden.
Right, exactly.
Biden's fault.
No, it's true though. I mean, because if that is your information source, and again, I do this without judgment. I do this only as sort of very much a fact perspective. It's that if you watch Fox or you watch, God forbid, Newsmax, ON, or whatever the crap, and that's where you believe in trust information, you will not get that reality. They will find a way to redirect.
Well, it's our job, right, to make clear who's responsible for this. And it is Donald Trump who, they keep saying, well, we're not cutting Medicaid, we're just getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. But that's just not true.
No, it ain't true. It ain't true.
And when Trump says, don't F with Medicaid, right? The only reason he's saying that is so that and I don't mean his lay people supporters. I mean, but to some degree but also the media says, well, he said don't mess with Medicaid. And it's like, yeah, he said that. So you would say that's what he said, but that's not what he's doing, right? Those are different things. And so I just worry about that. People are also pretty up in arms about the SNAP benefits, food stamps is how most people think about the name of that program. You're talking about 2 million kids who are going to be impacted by it. I mean, 2 million kids losing some or all access so that they can have 3 meals a day, and a billionaire can get, I don't know, an extra Porsche. I don't know. Like, that just feels wrong.
I don't know. It doesn't, because if you believe everything you've done in your life is because of you and you've earned it, who gives a shit? Right? And that's
where we are.
That is fundamental, though, because they're like, well, I've earned it, even if, of course we don't actually believe that, but that is the argument.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to switch it up a little bit. Let's talk about something positive. New York mayoral race, the primary was Tuesday night.
Wild.
Zohran Mamdani won the primary decisively, surprisingly.
Yes.
Democratic Socialist, which I think people don't really understand what that is. I don't want to talk about like the ranked choice voting or
no, and we don't want to talk about all this insider bullshit.
No, who cares? I literally do not care about it at all. But to me, the takeaways here that everyone should be thinking about when they're running is be human. Like, act like a human being when you are campaigning. Keep it simple. He relentlessly focused on affordability, which, guess what, is a huge problem in New York City. Affordable housing, the prices of everything.
Yeah, New York's expensive, people.
And the other thing was, he showed up.
No, and he showed up everywhere, and he put himself everywhere, and I think that's what people want to focus. It's political reporting so reductive. It really is. It's like everyone wants to say, oh, it's because Republicans want you to be. It's because he's sort of the Democrats and liberal New York City elected some anti-Israel, anti-Jew, anti-Semitic. That was not what the campaign is about, and doesn't mean he doesn't have views that are in support of and wants to stop the killing in Palestine, which, by the way, everyone should. No one should actually agree or support that. It's not but he was, to your point, talking about the issues that were really affecting people at the most human subsistence level, which is affordability and making sure that they can just have the basics. And that is, and he was hitting that relentlessly. That it was not about all these other things, the very reductive reporting, or the very reductive Republicans want to report that it was about. And beyond the policy prescriptions, he did it in a way and presented it in a way that, and in some ways, I will say this about Trump. People said, well, I may not agree with every single thing that person, but I actually think he's going to try to do what I think he should do, right? And the things that I care about. And even if he fails, and I think he may have even said this in a speech, or it's like, even if I will have like made the effort, and I will have like made an attempted to do right by people. And that is something that folks don't feel like there's enough of in the world, let alone from their elected officials. That's why people don't trust institutions. They don't trust what's out there, because they have been let down so much. And so someone who's willing to be like, this stuff is broken and I'm going to do my best. And you got to sort of believe in the human first. And I think that's where he really resonated with folks. It was human first, not poll test, not policy test, not was like, you know what? I actually believe that this person cares about me.
Agreed.
And that's where it goes. And that is something that we as Democrats do a really bad job of, right? And campaigns we litigate, we do a really bad job of. We always say all these things. You go, be human, be relatable, blah 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 blah. And here's 70 words you have to say every time.
Exactly.
You're like,
and you know what? People
tune out.
They tune out because they know you're doing poll tested crap.
Right, exactly. Because it's
not that was constructed in a lab.
Right. Yeah. Chat GPT will sound more human than that. I believe that.
That is.
I actually think if I take it and I just put in Chat GPT and say, please make this sound human, it will sound better.
Really? Yeah. You're like, listen, Chat GPT, you and I both know this
ain't it.
Like a bunch of
ain't it.
Shit.
This ain't it.
This sounds like it was. I don't take this personally, but it sounds like you made it.
But can
you make it so that it doesn't sound like you made it, and then people are gonna like it?
My one little thing I will say this is like from a negative, that anyone in the establishment who were like concerned about Zoran or whatever thought that like someone who had done all the awful things that Andrew Cuomo was the right person to hang your hat on in the end was just insane. But it will be interesting. The machinations will be different. All I know is like right now, it was an incredible campaign. Congrats to Zoran and the team who allowed, frankly, him to be him.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you get these experts, you try to change people and it doesn't work and it falls flat. And they ran an incredible campaign. They should be congratulated on that.
Absolutely. More to come on that. Before we get into the pop culture moment, which there's a lot.
A lot.
And we need a pop culture moment after this week. But I have to because it's hard to be shocked or surprised by anything this administration does anymore. And yet.
Can we?
And yet. So the Housing and Urban Development Secretary, Scott Turner, the HUD is his acronym for it. The HUD building is notorious, right? I actually like it. I think it's a really pretty building. It's very unique, but it is notorious. It's like, little out of date. People who work in the building are like super out of date.
Well, they talk about it like it's yes for poor.
Yes. So the HUD secretary, this guy named Scott Turner, who is a former NFL player. He apparently likes cars and has a rich car collection. The GSA, the General Services Administration, which oversees all of the federal government's properties, real estate, they went in and they said to the National Science Foundation, which, to be clear, has been gutted by DOJ and through the Trump administration, who doesn't believe in science, of course, because that involves facts.
Well, certainly our doesn't.
Yeah. So they're evicting the National Science Foundation from their own building. HUD is taking it over, and they're going to do a little bit of a glow up on the property. And at the top level, it's going to basically become a penthouse, as far as I can tell.
I'm not mad at him.
Why? You're not mad?
If Trump is going to do it, and I'm working for Trump, I'm going to get mine. I'm going to get mine. I'm going to get mine, and the top floor of the NSF is going to be lit.
I'm told he is going to be making available to himself. It's not a Mitt Romney car elevator, but there will be space for 5 of his own personal vehicles in the building. 5. It's a lot. I don't know how he drives 5 cars to work every day, but the point is he deserves it. There will be a gym and space for his family to stay there. I don't know why, because it's
in the
office.
offices.
But So it's so crazy that they are retrofitting a government building.
Doge is on it. Elon Musk is coming back and Doge is on it because, I mean, government inefficiency. I thought that was the whole point, Heather.
Listen, so it was actually reported earlier this week, the well-known Doge employee, Big Balls, was leaving government. That's actually not what happened. So he left as a special government employee, which essentially was the legal requirement. But he popped up today. He's now full-time. So now he's a full-time job under the Social Security Administration. This is scary stuff, actually. He's 20. He doesn't know anything about anything. And so I think it's actually a pretty bad sign. But let's talk about pop culture. Larry, there's so many things. So let's just
and I know you want to talk about this. First thing I want to talk, it's like, look, we thought this anti-DEI movement was crazy, and they have gotten to Anna Wintour. She had a Met Gala honoring black tailoring, and people were like, no, she has got to go. She is retiring. Anna Wintour.
I mean,
the devil that wears Prada.
40 years.
Almost 40 years, right? And she's like, she is stepping down. This is actually, she has had a huge impact, whether you agree with it or not, on society. She has been a tastemaker without you realizing she's been a tastemaker. As Miranda Priestley told you, is cerulean. You didn't even realize your shit was cerulean. And while you're wearing cerulean, we just did it for you.
Best monologue ever.
Doing it all the time. It's truly incredible. She has had a huge impact on society and taste and fashion. And realize she started as a journalist, and that is where she came from. And then started running Vogue and turned herself and the magazine into just a huge cultural flashpoint. She deserves tremendous credit for turning it into what it is and what she has done, and spawning many, many memes via the movie. And I think it is actually a really huge moment. Who knows what's going to happen? Who can actually try to fill those shoes?
Impossible! It's impossible.
It's impossible. It will not be. It will not be Anne Hathaway. And she's not doing it, y'all. Annie, she's not coming. So
maybe Emily Blunt will do it.
But it is a big deal, and pretty massive change in pop culture, because she scared the shit out of people. I mean, she terrified everyone at all levels beyond fashion, right? No one wanted to cross her, and she had tremendous power, and she deserved her time. She deserves her time off.
Do we want to talk about the Orlando Bloom Katy Perry split, or do we not care?
Always, because Katy Perry cannot do anything right these days. So I mean,
she's Canadian.
It's tough.
Canadian.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. It's another breakup. Do I care that much? Do I care, Heather?
I don't care, but I think it's interesting that Orlando Bloom is this weekend at Lauren Sanchez and Jeff Bezos' wedding in Venice, because Lauren Sanchez and Katy Perry are BFFs because they went to States together. So
I like that. I want drama.
Right. And now there are rumors that Orlando Bloom is moving in on Kim Kardashian, who's also at the wedding. Listen.
No.
You're vetoing?
No, we don't need this.
I don't know what to say to you about that.
And by the way, I've never been a huge fan of Orlando Bloom. So he was
good as an elf, I guess.
I've never gotten it. I don't get it.
Elizabethtown.
I'm over it. Personally, I'm over it because I don't care. And in fact, I might even like him less than Katy Perry, which seems impossible, but
he's not a good actor.
No,
this is why he's not acting.
Oh yeah, no. What has he done lately? He hasn't done anything in forever. Look, other good thing. Puffy's trial is coming to an end.
Thank God.
Whoever the hell knows what the hell is happening there. He did not take the stand, because that shit would have gone sideways. It would have been so much fun, but we were denied that privilege by his attorneys. So I'm really annoyed. I know Puffy would have wanted to get on the stand, because he always thinks he's right. But apparently his attorneys went out. They did not let him take the stand, which denied us all that that gift. And so that's
been
really
horrible.
And
It
then
would have been horrible, and he should
go away for disgusting.
go away.
And
Go away.
the bear is back.
The bear is back.
What controversy? I hated last season. They better
Oh.
get their shit together. That's what I'm saying.
But that had the Feast of the Seven Fishes episode, which is
No, there were great episodes, but it was just I think there was too much of cousin and cousin screaming at each other. I'm like, I don't think that's funny anymore. It's not actually when they focus on any character other than what's his name, those two. I thought, and actually when they focus on what's his name, Ivan's character, when it was just him and like more human side, I thought it was good.
Richie.
But like, the interaction between those two, as if it was supposed, it felt very played out. So and then honestly anyway, so I'm hoping they sort of shows go up and down. So I didn't love last season, though the feast episode was phenomenal.
So great.
It was really good, but overall I felt it was very uneven. So I hope they get it back together. And I really love the secondary characters of the show. In fact, they are truly the hardest.
The best. I loved the little Dutch subplot last.
Oh, that was great.
We went to the
Netherlands. So yeah, it was. So I hope they do that. I will also say I can't. Yeah, the whole. There's also an element of what's his name, the main actor, Jeremy Allen. Right?
Yeah, Jeremy Allen. Yeah, whatever.
I think that's his name. Like, don't tell me someone's hot when they're not. You can be okay with like you can find, but he ain't objectively it. So that's the other thing that I react to very strongly because I don't
listen. I feel you on that. Jeremy Allen White. That's it. Gene Wilder's grandson, and
I know exactly. You can't have these things that they look alike and then be like he's fine.
The standard derivation. Didn't I study that in high school?
It's crazy. No, that
standard derivation doesn't work there. I don't know.
Yeah, you can't tell me no. And I love Gene Wilder.
Yes. So
Willy Wonka.
I didn't tell you this, Larry, but I poured myself a double because we needed it for this episode. But we're about done here.
Enjoy your evening.
Yes. You enjoy your evening. Safe travels wherever you may be going. And
we'll try to do this while I'm overseas, but we'll see what happens.
It'll be more fun for sure. You'll have an aperitif in the afternoon. Safe travels. Cheers and be safe and be well, everyone. Take care.
Bye, y'all.